For night shift drivers, the mountain roads between 1 and 4 a.m. are a completely different world. The road is empty, the dark is heavy, and the time feels very slow. We call it the tree-strap window. No one wants to be alone on the road during those hours. Last month, tied on rent, I took a job I normally would have turned down. The call came in at 11:30 p.m. Special delivery. Pick up a package in Balok and drop it off at an alley address Stephen gave up, Saigon. Triple standard rate, enough to cover my expenses for the entire month in a single run. I said yes before I even finished reading the details. The sender was waiting outside when I arrived. A middle-aged man, gaunt face, with a dark circle of someone who hadn't slept properly in days. He carried an oak box to my car himself, setting it carefully on the back seat. The box was secured with 2 iron latches, and it gave off a strange smell of the moment it was inside. Damp earth, thick and musty, underneath a heavy cloud of incense. Before closing the door, he pressed a $500,000 note into my hand, about $20 tips, leaned down to the window and said in a low, tight voice, "Get it there before 4 a.m., please." That was it. No other instructions. I pocketed the cash, told myself it wasn't my business what was in the box. I locked the door and pulled out into the night. The Ballock Pass at midnight was a different kind of dark. No oncoming traffic, no street lights, just the trim pins of my headlights tunneling forward into nothing. Sometime after 1 a.m., a wall of fog rolled down from the ridgeline, thick as white porridge, swallowing everything beyond a few meters. The radio, which had been playing quietly in the background, dissolved into sharp, hissing static. I reached for the dial, and my headlight swept across a figure at the edge of the road. A young woman, standing at the lip of the abyss in the freezing fog. She wore a transparent nylon raincoat. One thin arm raised slowly to flag me down. Every instant I had fired at once. Do not stop. Middle of a deserted mountain pass. Nearly 2 a.m. No village or house for kilometers in any direction. Where does a young woman come from out here to hitch a ride? Either it was a setup, or it was something else entirely. Neither option ended well. I took my foot off the brake, pressed the accelerator, and drove past her. The exact moment my car swept by, I made the mistake of glancing sideways through the passenger window. Under the red wash of my taillights, her head was turned completely backward, snapped at an impossible angle, twisted like a broken spring, her mouth hanging open and perfectly black. I snapped my eye back to the road. My hand was shaking. I kept muttering under my breath. Prayers or curse. I couldn't tell which. And I didn't slow down until the figure was far behind me. The dashboard clock ticked exactly 2 a.m. The temperature inside the cabin dropped all at once. A bone-deep cold sweeping in from nowhere. With it came the smell. Mud, rot, and a thick wave of incense that shot straight up into my sinuses. The same smell as the oak box, but magnified tenfold. The inside of the windshield began fogging over from the cold. By reflex, I glanced up at the rearview mirror. The octopus was still on the back seat, both iron latches still in place. But sitting right back beside it was a dark figure, long hair hanging loose around its face. Then, fingernails, slow and deliberate, striking across the leather of my headrest. The seat cushion sank, and the waist was pressing itself upward from behind me. And I felt warm, rotting breath settle against the back of my neck. I didn't look back. I reached up, snapped the rear mirror flat against the ceiling so it shows nothing, locked my eyes on the road, and floored it. The car shot forward through the fog. Just don't look back. Do not look back. 15 minutes later, the fog began to break. Street lights appeared in the distance. The bottom of the path. Civilizations. Warm air seeping back into the cabin. The scratching stopped. I let out a breath that felt like it had been sitting in my chest for half an hour. And I reached up to tilt the mirror back down. The seatbelt alarm. The little red warning light blinking rapidly on the dashboard. Not for the back seat. For the front passenger seat. I went completely still. From the corner of my eye, I looked sideways, slowly. The way you move when part of you already knows what you are going to see and is trying to delay it. The passenger seat cushion was compressed, deeply, unmistakably intended. The clear outline of a body sitting right beside me. A single drop of freezing water, reeking of mud, fell from somewhere above and landed on the back of my hand. She wasn't behind me anymore. The radio crackled sharply. The music cut out. And from somewhere just beside my right ear, a whispering female voice. Why were you driving so fast earlier? The next hour was the longest of my life. I didn't turn to look. I didn't speak. I barely breathed. My eyes stayed locked on the GPS road ahead. My hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, while the passenger seat beside me remained pressed down under the weight I couldn't see. And the smell of incense filled every corner of the car. At exactly 3:45 a.m., I pulled into the alley in Govap and shipped to park. The moment the handbrake clicked into place, the seat cushion beside me sprang back up. The weight lifted instantly. The smell of incense vanished, as if someone had opened a window, though no window had moved. A small group of people was waiting at the mouth of the alley, their faces tight with quiet anxiety. A young man and an elderly woman hurried over as I stepped out. The young man reached into the back seat and lifted the oak box out carefully, then immediately unlatched the two iron clips to check the contents inside. I watched the lid swing open. There was no handicrafts, no machinery, no documents. Sitting in the center of a folded red cloth was a cremation urn, and on the front of it, a black and white portrait photograph, a young woman, a slightly stiff smile. The kind of people wear when they know they are being photographed for something important. I recognized her face immediately. The transparent raincoat, the edge of the habits, the arm raised slowly in the fog. It was her. I had spent the last several hours transporting a dead woman's ashes down the same mountain pass where her spirit has tried to flag me down. The elderly woman stepped forward. Her eyes were wet. She pressed a thick fold of cash into my hands, her voice low and apologetic. Please understand, her uncle in Bala kept it a secret because he was afraid you would refuse the job if you knew the truth. Today is a 7 days memorial. We have to bring her home in time for the ceremony. I stood there in pre-dawn quiet of that alley, sweat cooling on my forehead, the money in my hand. I thought about the fog, the broken angle of her neck, the voice beside my ear. And then I thought about my rent. I nodded to the family, said nothing, and got back in the car. The engine turned over. The radio flickered on. One last burst of static, brief and soft, and through it, barely audible, the voice of a young woman. Thank you for bringing me home. I sat with that for a moment. Then I put the car in gear and drove. My name is Lily. Back then, I was working part-time at a local movie theater. We had a late screening that night. By the time I closed the register and made my way out of the theater, it was nearly 1:30 a.m. The moment I stepped through the class doors, the cold night air hit my face. The street that had been packed with people just hours ago was now completely empty. Every shop had its shutters rolled down tight. The last bus had stopped running long ago. My only option was to walk to the main intersection and catch a cheap van. Those old beat-up 16-seaters driving by off the book's driver in the early hours, picking up anyone still stranded on the streets. The road ahead was long and quiet, lit only by the pale yellow glow of a few flickering streetlights. The only sound was my own shoes hitting the pavement. Luckily, right as I reached the intersection, a Ford Transit pulled over. I climbed in. It was dark inside and smelled of stale AC. There were 3 other passengers, a middle-aged man in the front seat, a woman in the middle row, and a girl sitting all the way in the back, wearing a white traditional dress and clutching a worn backpack. I took a window seat in the middle and let out a quiet breath of relief. About 15 minutes in, the man and the woman got off at the junction. Now, there were only 3 of us left. Me, the girl in the back, and the drivers. The driver shifted chairs and kept going. A moment later, he glanced at the rearview mirror and clicked his tongue. It's getting late. I'm calling it a night after I drop you off at your intersection. Then I'm heading straight to the lot and go home. He reached up and switched off the available signs on the roof. The van, already dim, got a little darker. I nodded and pulled out my phone. Then, from the back row, a flat, quiet voice spoke up. Uncle, let me off at the curve. I didn't think much of it. I figured the driver has heard her, but the van didn't slow down. It just kept moving through the dark. The voice came again, slower this time, short out and strange. Why aren't you stopping? This is my stop. I assumed the driver was trying to ignore her, to get home faster. Without looking up from my phone, I said, "Hey, driver, the girl in the back wants you to stop." The driver hit the brake hard. The van jerked into a halt. In the rearview mirror, he was staring straight at me. His eyes was wide with panic. His voice came out low and shaky. "Miss, what are you talking about? It's just been you and me this whole time." "What girl?" "That's the whole reason I said I'll drop you off and go straight to my house." My entire body went cold. Slowly, I turned to look at the back row. The girl was still there, but now she was completely soaked. Thick, muddy water dripped steadily from her hair onto the floor of the van. Her face was pale, grayish white, and her eyes, there was no white in them at all. Just two hollow black voids staring directly at me. I snapped my head back to the front. My throat locked up. I couldn't make a sound. Cold sweat ran down my back, and my hands gripped the edge of the seat so hard, my knuckle went white. The driver caught one look at my face in the mirror and understood immediately. He didn't say a word. He just floored the gas and drove. The van flew through the night until it screeched to a stop in a brightly lit area near my place. Only then I did dare to look back one more time. The back row was empty, completely empty. And where she has been sitting, not a single drop of water on the seat. I scrambled out of the van. The driver climbed out right behind me, his hands shaking so badly it took him several tries to light the cigarette. He took a long drag and told me what he knew. Every driver working late night road knew about that curve. Whenever they passed it, a quiet girl would get on and sit in the back without saying a word. 3 years ago, there has been road work right at that spot. A deep trench had been dug, but no barriers were put up around it. One rainy night, a girl was walking home after missing the last bus. In the dark, she didn't see the trench. She slipped and fell in. By the time anyone found her, she was still holding her torn backpack. She had just been trying to get home. And every night since then, she's still trying. Last month, I was completely broke, so I had to bite the bullet and rent a rundown one-story house. It was tucked deep inside a winding, suburban alley. The area was full of manual laborers who left at the dawn and didn't return until the dark, making the neighborhood constantly silent and deserted. The landlord was a guy in his 30s, well-dressed and slick-backed hair. He was overly friendly. He patted my shoulder, claiming he had just hired workers to renovate the place, so I could comfortably settle in for a long haul. The rent was dirt cheap. Being desperate, I nodded and put down the deposit right away. Everything was fine, except for one thing: the smell. From the very first night, I noticed a fan, forward or door, its link in the air occasionally hitting my nose. It smelled exactly like a rat has met its end stuck somewhere in the drywall ceiling. I bought all sorts of air fresheners, room sprays, and even scattered coffee grounds in the corners, figuring the smell would fade in a few days. But I was wrong. The odor didn't fade. It grew stronger every single day. By the third day, strange things started happening. The weirdest was the AC. Even when I set the temperature to 28 degrees, the corner of the room right next to my bed was always freezing. So freezing cold that I could see my breath. Then came the sounds. For 3 nights straight, at exactly 2 a.m., I heard a rustling noise. The sound was incredibly faint. It wasn't some scurrying of a rat. It was slow, rhythmic, like someone's fingernails gently scraping against the cement. At first, I pulled a blanket over my head to ignore it. But when I couldn't take it anymore, I pressed my ear to listen. My spine went cold when I realized the scratching wasn't coming from the ceiling. It was coming from inside the wall right next to my bed. The climate hit on the fourth night. The night that changed my life forever. I was drifting up to sleep when my body suddenly paralyzed. Sleep paralyzed. I couldn't move a muscle. Couldn't even scream. Opening my eyes slightly, I saw a figure. A young woman. She's standing in the corner, right at the edge of my bed. Her hair was messy and matted. She was completely soaked, with dark, murky drops dripping onto the tile floor. She didn't make a sound. She only stared at me. Stuck firmly to her forehead was a yellow talisman with a jagged red writing. She just stood there. Slowly, she raised her thin, pale hand. Her index finger pointed straight at the striped wall next to my bed, pointing exactly at the spot where the scratching came from every night. I woke up with a start, my shirt drenched in cold sweat. The room was choked with a sickening stressful scent. It was overwhelmingly thick. It wasn't a rat. The smell was sour, harsh, and far more stomach-turning. The next morning, I immediately called the landlord. I used the excuse of a pest issues in the drywall, demanding he send someone to fix this right away because I couldn't sleep. In stark contrast to his friendly demeanor when taking my deposits, his tongue suddenly turned unusually aggressive. He warned me, strictly forbidding me from touching or straying into his walls. He claimed he was on a business trip and would handle it himself over the weekend. But how could I sleep in the same room with that disgusting smell and the scratching noises for 3 more days? My gut told me something was wrong, extremely wrong. I ran out to the main street and hired a local handyman. I slipped him some cash, asking him to cut a small square in the wall, pulled short of the smell out and packed it back up. The landlords would never know. The handyman nodded and brought out his tools. He used an utility knife to score the edges and grabbed a handsaw and struggled to cut a section of his driveway right where I pointed. The moment the driveway was pried open, a wave of the most horrifying, suffocating foul air burst out, hitting us right in the face. Both the handyman and I dropped everything, ran out the door, and threw up. My stomach knotted, dry heaving. Holding his nose tightly, the handyman turned on his phone's flashlight and shined it into the big flat hollow space. White agricultural powder was crumbling from inside. Suddenly, he let out a terrified scream, stumbled backward, and fell onto the floor. His face strained of all color. "Oh my God! There's a person in there!" Trembling, I stepped closer, gathering all my courage to look through the gap. There was no rat inside. Curled up tightly in that narrow hollow wall was a torn woven sack. The layer of white powder, used to absorb moisture and block scents, had peeled away significantly. It revealed long, matted hair and a dark, unrecognizable face. And the thing that made my spine freeze and my limbs go weak was that on her forehead was a yellow talisman with jagged red writing, exactly like the one in my stream last night. The handyman and I bolt from the house, our hands shaking as we dialed the authorities. The investigation resulted that they shocked the entire neighborhood. The poor souls in the war was the landlord's ex-girlfriend. Her family had reported her missing exactly a month ago. That ruthless landlord had done an unthinkable thing to her right there. To hide the evidence, he broke the wall, concealed her inside, poured in the white powder, and personally flattered her and repented to look brand new. Even more wicked, he brought in a sorcerer to cast a spell, sticking a talisman on her forehead, so her spirit would be trapped forever in that dark space, unable to reach out to her family. But he didn't expect that her tragic frequency would turn in with me. Her last bit of strength went into those desperate scratching sounds every night. Thanks to that, the truth was finally brought to light. The landlord was handcuffed that very afternoon. I packed my things and moved out immediately, not even care about deposits. To this day, but whenever I recall the morning that wall was broken, I still shudder. Ghosts are terrifying, but thinking back, the human hurt is the most terrifying thing of all. There was once lover, sharing the same bed, yet he could ruthlessly end her journey, coldly pour powder over her, conceal her in the wall, and casually rent the place out to someone else. Sometimes, the monster disguised as living people right next to us are the most cold-blooded entities of all.